So you're probably asking, am I now high porosity? I've changed my mind from low porosity to high porosity. Yes, I am a high porosity natural. Thanks, Nadine. It makes sense. It makes sense for us to be caring for our hair as though it was more high porosity than it is low. In this video, I'm going to be analyzing a video that I watched right here on YouTube talking about Black people can't have low porosity hair. And I agree. Let's get into the video. So guys, this video is likely to be long. Like I said, you don't have to watch the whole thing. I'll try to put timestamps. You don't have to take this as gospel truth, but girl, we need to talk about this. 2024 is the year to undo, redo, unlearn, and learn different things, more beneficial things, be more progressive with our hair. And when I saw this video by Nadine Natural, I think she's called, I was shocked, okay, to say the least. She's talking about Black people can't have low porosity hair, and I thought, what a huge claim to make. So I said, let's watch it. She's done a part 1, part 2. I'm gonna try and dissect both of them and pick out the main points and discuss what I think. Nadine is actually a chemical engineer. She's actually worked in product formulation, I believe she said in one of her videos. So she's someone that's knowledgeable, and she's someone that may have actually more experience and more in-depth knowledge than myself when it comes to products and the structure of the hair, etc.
Let's take a look at what a Black person's hair cuticle looks like under a microscope. So this is an African hair cuticle underneath a microscope. They use this in crime scene investigations to identify suspects at a scene. So if they find somebody's hair follicle, like a hair strand at a crime scene, this is what they use to identify the race of the suspect. So this is literally what a Black hair cuticle looks like under a microscope. And as you can see, the cuticle is naturally raised. It's literally genetically and in our DNA that an African hair cuticle is naturally raised. And when you compare it to Asians and Caucasians, there's been lots of scientific studies done. Science Direct is a really good website if you guys want to check those out to have a look at some research papers that have been done on real people, large sample sizes, cuticles by race, in which from a lot of these research articles you will see that Asian people have the lowest porosity. They tend to have a thicker amount of cuticles, because you don't just have one layer of cuticles, by the way, you'll have like multiple layers. So Asians tend to have a thicker layer of cuticles, they tend to be more densely packed, and they tend to be close. And you can really tell by the way Asian hair looks, they have extremely low porosity hair. For Caucasians it can vary, but for Black people it is always consistently a raised cuticle, which is exactly why I say that Black people, realistically, your hair is not going to be low porosity because of the way the natural anatomy of your hair is. Your cuticles are going to be raised, you're probably going to have high porosity hair. When you put a Black cuticle next to a high porosity cuticle underneath the microscope, they literally basically look the same. So there are a few characteristics of our hair that you can easily tell are high porosity. For example, the fact that our hair gets dry very quickly. Somebody with low porosity hair, for example an Asian person, their hair retains moisture so well they don't even need to moisturize it. The very fact that a lot of us naturalistas need to moisturize our hair in between wash days, we need to moisturize our hair constantly, shows that it's high porosity because we're not retaining that moisture. If we had low porosity hair, we wouldn't need to moisturize our hair, because that is literally one of the characteristics. Low porosity hair retains moisture very well, which is why you don't see a lot of Caucasian and Asian people using moisturizers and leave-ins and that type of thing, because their hair just doesn't need it, because their cuticles seal that moisture in so well.
The simple fact that Black people have to moisturize their hair often is a characteristic in and of itself of high porosity. We don't see white people moisturizing their hair, or Asian people coating leave-in conditioners and sealing their hair with castor oil and all that. However, we do. There are people, our sisters, who have ditched the oils and butters and they don't do any of that. But as a general rule of thumb, African people, Black people, women of color, we use a lot of product to moisturize our hair, and that is because it is naturally dry. And guys, because the cuticle of a high porosity person is naturally raised, or always raised, or has a propensity to be raised, it means that moisture leaks out more often, which means the hair is left dry more often, which means you get people like me who have a tendency or just have a need to moisturize their hair more often than most people. Of course, if you're using glycerin, then you got some secrets under your belt and you don't have to moisturize every day. However, still, we use leave-in conditioners, we use techniques to try and keep that moisture in, right? Now, I know Nadine, it kind of says that Asians and Caucasians don't use leave-in conditioners, and therefore that, indicates that their hair doesn't need moisture as much as us. However, there's something I want to add to that, and that is the fact that because a lot of them, Asian and Caucasian people's hair is straighter, or at least wavy or looser curl, the oils from the scalp travel easier, so they have that to coat their hair. So yes, in as much as they don't use leave-in conditioners and oils like us, they have the ability or the advantage of having oils run down their shaft to coat it, protect it, and moisturize it or hydrate it.
Another reason why it's easy to tell that Black people's hair is high porosity is, like I said, the cuticle is raised, which gives us this kind of kinky look. Asians and Caucasians' hair's cuticle tends to be smooth and closed, like I said, and because of that, the light bounces off of their hair a lot more, meaning that their hair appears to be a lot more shiny, it appears more lustrous, where with Black hair, because the cuticles are raised, the light doesn't bounce off of it in the same way, which gives us that kinky look, that look that's not as shiny, it's not as like lustrous.
If your cuticles are raised, of course you're not going to have a natural sheen or shine. You're not going to have light bouncing back from the hair as we see with the Asians, unless you stretch it with heat. In its natural state, because it's curly, of course, makes sense, because it's curly, then you don't have that ability to reflect light. But also, if the cuticle is raised, then you have the texture that we know as kinky. I'm just listening to this video and I'm like, what? How come nobody talks about this? So yeah, this is really interesting stuff. I do agree with her that if you've got a raised cuticle, then your overall look, right? The overall look of your hair will not be shiny. However, texture and the hair type and also the coiliness has to be factored in when it comes to the overall look of Afro hair, particularly kinky type form.
And basically it's this test, and you put a clean strand of hair in. If your hair floats, it's low porosity. If it sinks, it's high porosity, which is absolutely factually wrong. Something floating in water hasn't got anything to do with porosity. The only thing that determines whether something floats or sinks is its density relative to the environment that it's in. In normal terms, if it's less dense, it's gonna float. If it sinks, that means your hair is more dense than the water that you're putting it in. And in actual fact, more porous materials, so materials that tend to have a lot more holes in, gaps in, and can absorb water, tend to be more lightweight. So if you think of a sponge is gonna float in water, not because it's low porosity, but because it's less dense, because it's high porosity, because it's got loads of space for air to flow through.
Guys, there's so many problems with that test. It's not really effective, is it? I mean, I guess at that time it helped us maybe have some kind of idea, but accuracy, no. What is coating the hair will also affect it. So if you've got product and oil and that might, take a bit longer to sink because the oil is blocking moisture from going in quick. However, that test, girl, it's gotta go. I really do agree that the porosity test is not really, it's really not testing porosity. It's testing, I don't know, density, as in how dense the hair is or is not.
A lot of people also ask the question, if my hair is not low porosity, then why do products sit at the surface? There's so many reasons as to why products would sit at the surface, but I'm gonna literally just say the main one, which is equilibrium. I don't really know how to say that in non-science terms, but you know what equilibrium is. Basically, equilibrium is an equal concentration on each side. It basically means that your hair's going to take up what it needs, and when it feels like it's got what it needs, it's not going to allow more product in naturally.
I agree. Equilibrium, right? Equilibrium. If your hair hasn't been washed for a while and you go and stand in the shower, it'll have bubbles. There's resistance there. Oil is, hair is water hating or water repelling. Because of the oils, we haven't really considered the other things that might be affecting how quickly our hair absorbs water.
By putting a hair strand underneath UVA and UVB rays, i.e. the sun. And as you can see here from the Asian, Caucasian and African hair cuticles, there are differences. Looking here at the Asian cuticle, you can see that there is a regular smooth wave pattern within the cuticle. In the control here, you can clearly see that there are even cuticles that are more raised than others, and on top of that you can see the irregular pattern. So if you have a look at this Caucasian cuticle, you can see that it is one smooth long wave, where in the African cuticle it's kind of split up into smaller scales. It's not as a regular pattern, there's a bit more gaps, there's areas of flakes, there's areas of lifting, and this is a natural African hair cuticle. Now if we take a look at after 12 hours of UVA, you can see that parts of the cuticles have started to raise. If we look at UVB, after 12 hours, we can see that the cuticles have raised more drastically. Both of them increase our hair's porosity. Now what that tells me is that even though we have high porosity hair, the minute you step outside, girl, your porosity is gonna increase even more.
I don't think there's any other evidence that I've seen that is more in-depth than this one right here. Unfortunately, Afro hair is not very well studied, and there's not much research on our hair, so we have to scramble for information and kind of bounce whatever information is already out there on other hair types and run with that. However, this is the most in-depth, the most logical perspective of hair porosity, particularly African people's porosity. Some people might have lower porosity than others, but it's still of a high nature, or on the higher side, if you know what I mean. Because if an Asian who has got 10 cuticle layers, 10, no wonder she can use heat and whatever, why the hair is not phased, you know. Nadine talks about sunscreen and how under a microscope, African hair, once it was exposed to sunlight for just 2 hours, the cuticle was raised. Sis, we've been doing some things wrong. We should be wearing sunscreen on our hair. This is so eye-opening to me. I'm just like, what? So pretty much, when compared to Asian or Caucasian people, our cuticle is thinner. Our cuticle is less uniform, do you know? Our cuticles have less layers, and our cuticle is raised, or more raised than the other races. Make matters worse, our cuticles usually are found with gaps. High porosity. High porosity. I have always thought I'm a low porosity girl. This is crazy. Now guys, I had a look at the comment section, right? And what people were saying to Nadine's video. Most people were like me, light bulb moment. Light bulb moment. There's too many facts here to ignore that we might actually be more high porosity, right? This is not something that we should be arguing about. We should be holding hands together to discover what our hair is, because the world's not researching your hair, girl. So this is it. This is us. However, some comments, mainly from hairstylists, right? We're like, oh, I see so many clients in the chair. I've seen 45,000 clients over my career, and my daughter is low porosity and whatnot, and that's the argument. But my question is, Where is the evidence? How do you know this is low porosity? Are you looking under a microscope? What are you comparing it to? Like, have you seen someone else's hair? Like, what are you using to determine that the clients that you're seeing's hair is indeed low porosity? And I understand stylists are professionals, they have a degree, they know more than me, I get it. But like most things, right? Medicine, nursing, accounting, what have you, you go to university, you're taught a curriculum. University is a way to put us in a box. You think in a box because you were told this is the information, these are the routines, this is the spectrum, right? So anything that challenges you to think outside of that is, oh, it's a threat, and I'm educated, and all the education we got did not touch that topic, therefore that is incorrect, which is unfortunate. You should be able to still keep an open mind even though you are a degree holder or you have a qualification. That's just my opinion. One YouTuber called, I'll put her name here, I forgot her name, but she's done a reaction video where she's talking about the articles and the sites that Nadine was referring to can't really be taken or trusted because they do not use the scientific method. Okay, again, scientific method is just another curriculum or method that people use. It's not curriculum, but it's a method that is used to collect data, research it, and derive results in a controlled way that you can trust those results, so to speak. And I agree with her. I'm like, yes, fine, we may not have research that has been done based on the scientific method, but what else is there? That's my question. What else is there? What else can we stand on to say, hey, here's the research that Black people have got low porosity? It's not there. So this is the closest we have, and it makes sense for us to lean more towards high porosity than low, because all these things point to the fact that we may actually have more high porosity than low porosity. I believe that Nadine's perspective needs to be considered because she's actually bringing receipts. She's got websites, she's got data, she's got her experience, she's got her qualification, and whatever she's saying is actually making sense. So I'm more inclined to agree with her than I am to disagree with her. Unfortunately, the relationship between influencers and hairstylists has been one that has been strained for too long. All right, we have just failed to coexist, to cooperate. We have failed, and this video is another, I guess, proof that we're struggling in that department. We've just gone through the whole no oil, no butters, where influencers and stylists were loggerheads, just dissing each other and being unkind with each other, when really we should be supporting each other. We're on the same team. We're trying to discover our hair, we're trying to learn, we're trying to improve. And there's no problem with learning new things or saying, oh, hold on, maybe we're wrong here. Let's try this other thing. Let's try this other thing. But this whole bashing each other, name calling, what have you, that keeps us in the same redundant, stagnant place. I would really love to see us progress, but maybe it's wishful thinking. Now, my final thoughts with regards to the claim that all Blacks or all Africans or African American people have got high porosity hair, or Black people cannot have low porosity hair. Is that true? Girl, I don't know. I do not know. I don't know because I'm not a chemist, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a scientist. I don't know. What I do know is that Nadine's video makes sense. There's a lot of things, even just about the characteristic of our hair. The characteristics of our hair lean more towards high porosity. And honestly, I had a light bulb moment when I thought to myself, I talk a lot about, oh, if you're low porosity, because I've considered myself low porosity. When I did the test, I was low porosity. I've always said to people, oh, listen, if you're low porosity, use small little watery products in small amounts and work that product in. That routine has never worked for me. You guys know. I've just done videos where I slap on lots of moisture. I slap on lots of creams and creams and oils, right? To moisturize my hair, and my hair loves that. My hair drinks that up. that is actually more high porosity practices than it is low porosity, right? Because high porosity is all about closing that cuticle, laying that cuticle down, smoothing that cuticle down, which is what I naturally do without knowing, or not without knowing, but without considering that, okay, yeah, the test said low porosity, but this is what my hair likes. So some of the things that I'm already doing in my routine are actually high porosity based. So the evidence I'm taking from this video is simply that our cuticle, Black people's cuticle, when it was seen under the microscope, it was raised, there were gaps, they were thinner cuticles, and they were not uniform. I would like to add that our cuticle is thinner, we have less layers of cuticle, we've got more fragile hair because of the bends, right? And we manipulate our hair more. All those things are gonna lead you to hair that is more porous, that's more high porosity than low porosity. That constant manipulation that we do with our hair that actually requires a bit of work, right? Detangling, whatever you, that causes wear and tear in the hair. So we are naturally going to have hair that seems, or that will be more high porosity than low porosity. So you're probably asking, am I now high porosity? I've changed my mind from low porosity to high porosity. Yes, I am a high porosity natural. Thanks, Nadine. It makes sense. It makes sense for us to be caring for our hair as though it was more high porosity than it is low. And honestly, like I said already, I'm already doing more high porosity practices than low, even if the test said otherwise. I'd like to hear from you. Comment below, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any comments, any experience with this. Did you know this already? Is this new stuff? Are you changing your mind? Do you think I'm crazy or Nadine's crazy? Whatever. As long as you're respectful in the comment section, we can have a chat. Until next time, it's Coily Diaries. Bye.